Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I would request everyone to settle down, please, as we begin with our next session for the day. The pace of adoption and applications of geospatial data and technologies is much higher now than we saw in earlier decades. This has led to the requirement of new skills and competencies. There is a need to step up the efforts and transform university-level education to meet the requirements of the immediate and near future. This closing session of IGLS 2022 themed around addressing the elephant in the room, strategies for developing geospatial skill sets, will attempt to address this major gap and discuss strategies on developing the next generation of future-ready geospatial resources and skills. With that, I would like to welcome on stage the first speaker of the session, Mr. Rajesh Mathur, past President AGI India and Senior Director Strategy at ESRI India. Mr. Mathur has spearheaded the growth of GIS deployment in India. He is actively involved with various professional bodies associated with the Indian geospatial industry, including AGI, the FICCI Committee on Geospatial Technologies, and the Indian Society of Geomatics. Sir, I welcome you on stage.
Good afternoon and welcome back to this session. Last evening when Megha started moderation of the last session of the day, she remarked, we kept the best for the last. I would like to add my 2 bit to it and say, you have kept the most important for the last. And I'm saying is because of this reason. Our industry has grown amazingly in the last 2 to 3 decades. However, the community which has really provided the fuel for this growth are the academic institutions who provided us with the skilled manpower as we're driving our agenda to evangelize geospatial technologies, increase adoption, grow the usage, and so on. While we from the industry were working on growing the industry, these institutions were busy training manpower to support our initiatives. And I'd like to acknowledge some of the pioneers who played a major role in building the technical manpower. And some of them are Professor IVM Murali Krishna of JNTU, Professor Anjana Vyas, CPT University, Professor Venkat Raman from IIT Bombay, from IIT Kanpur, Professor Bharat Lohani, and I recognize that he'll be a speaker in this session. Also, I don't know how many of you remember Dr. Natarajan of Anna University, also director of IRS at that time. Late Brigadier Khanzode of Symbiosis Institute of Geoinformatics, Professor Majumdar of Symbiosis, and now Dr. T.P. Singh, Professor Ghosh, Professor Garg, Professor A.K. Saraf of IIT Roorkee, Dr. P.S. Roy, Dr. Dadwal, Dr. Vayam Krishnamurthy, and now, and more recently, Professor or Dr. Prakash Chauhan. Last but not the least, Professor Ashwani Gosai of IIT Delhi. Without their contribution, I don't think we'd have got the kind of manpower that the industry needed as we carved out our growth strategy. Let's see how large is the industry today. I would like to start with a quote, "Ye dil mange more." You've done a lot for us, but the industry has grown. So we clearly need a lot more of the manpower which was required earlier. As per an estimate of geospatial media study done in 2018, the total manpower deployed in the geospatial domain was 251,000 across different roles and across different profiles. And this number is expected to grow to around 970,000 by 2025. While numbers are important, I think it's more important to map some of these numbers on the skill pyramid to see where is the, well, which is the elephant in the room, so to speak. At a very broad level, there are three kinds of role holders in the geospatial fraternity. And I'm not including here the surveyors and disaster operators. They play a very important role, but for the purpose of the discussion, I'm talking about these three profiles. At the bottom of the pyramid are the programmer, the analyst, the people who configure the commercial of the shelf software to specific requirements. In the middle of the pyramid, we have solution architects, image analysts, database analysts, and so on. And at the top of the pyramid, an extremely important role, we have the program managers and the project managers and people like that. These are the people who design large enterprise systems running on the web or the cloud. They align it to the requirements of the users based on the domain in which they're operating, integrating it with other information systems, the enterprise platforms, and so on. And clearly, one of the competencies that they need would be domain expertise. If they talk to a person in a municipal commissioner, they should know what are the challenges a municipal corporation faces where geospatial may have a solution available. The solution architects, again, need to have domain expertise, but they also need to have good capability in design, system design, not the RDBMSs, commercial off-the-shelf software, or open source if that's what they're using, and of course, web and cloud. A deep application knowledge and a deep knowledge of not just geospatial, but also mainstream IT. And at the bottom of the pyramid, the developers and the programmers, of course, need to understand the core software on which they're going to be working, programming languages, because all the work involves now programming in different languages, also with scripting languages, Python, JavaScript, RESTful APIs, and so on and so forth. So they need to have good, deep knowledge of those technologies also. What are some of the challenges we are facing, the industry and the user community? I'm sure you would agree that there's an acute shortage of high caliber geospatial professionals in the industry. People who have a deep knowledge of the technology, good understanding of various domains, at least some of the domains, all of them is impractical, and also a good understanding of current trends in technology, AI, machine learning, deep learning, augmented reality, real-time GIS, that is IoT, and so on and so forth. Because of the shortage, we're also finding high level of attrition, which is also today is something that's happening in the mainstream IT also, and geospatial is no different. And also coupled to that is because there's a shortage of manpower and there's high attrition, the costs are rising. As per a survey done by Accenture for WEF, World Economic Forum, they determined that the IT manpower demand today is 8 times the supply. So all this that is written on the slide on the top is very obvious when the demand totally outstrips the supply. Also, we often find that there are certain gaps at the entry level. The students who come out of in universities, while they have good knowledge, they have good understanding of the technology, but there are few gaps. For instance, technology is constantly evolving. New trends are emerging, new development tools are being offered in the market. It's getting integrated with various other subsystems. It's adopted all the current developments in mainstream IT. However, some of the courses haven't kept pace with that, and therefore students have to be retrained for maybe 4 to 6 weeks before they can be assigned to a project. Also, oftentimes we find that students have very limited knowledge of IT and domain. What really means is a need for a curriculum review. And I don't want to go details on that, but to deliver the revised curriculum, we also need to conduct refresher courses for the faculty to equip them with the necessary skills and understanding of technology to deliver that training. And often when I speak to university professors, I find that They are not very happy with the quality of students who are opting for geospatial courses. It's certainly not as sought after as computer science, which is expected because computer science offers a much wider choice of careers. But the kind of opportunity that exists in geospatial domain, I think as an industry, we haven't done a good job of educating prospective students on the kind of opportunities that are waiting for them in the event they opt for a career in geospatial. Now, all this that we discussed so far is about the what I may call the supply side. Let's expand the discussion or extend the discussion to cover to take a 360-degree view of the whole ecosystem by bringing in our user organizations also. Because I believe there's a need for, maybe skilling is the wrong term for them, but a need to expose the technology to them also, so that when they take decisions, they are more informed about what this technology can do for them. At the top of the pyramid are the approvers, the senior officers in the government, the CXO level persons in corporates who approve budgets, who approve investments, and also who are the ones who will be finally benefiting from the geospatial. And typically these are senior bureaucrats, principal secretaries in the state government, mission director in the central government, mission director for smart cities, Swachh Bharat, and so on. In a PWD or water resources department, chief engineers, CXO level or CEO level persons in corporate. The next group are the process owners, very, very important people. And often we don't give them as much importance as as they deserve. They are the actual users of this technology in the organization. They are the people who go through the pains of adopting this technology. I mean, I'm sure you'll agree, adopting any technology does have some initial pain, but they are also the people who are going to benefit from this technology in the medium to long term. And these are typically department heads, like in a municipal corporation. If the commissioner would belong to the approver category, then the department heads looking after, let's say, solid waste management, property tax, and others would belong to this category. Also in a forest department, earlier the gentleman from KSR said talked about forestry. So divisional forest officers who make working plans are the people in this category, and others are that. At the bottom of the pyramid, the enablers, the people we have been talking about earlier, the IT team, the GIS team, and so on. I think there's a need to expose each of these layers of roles to different aspects of this technology. Some of the issues that we often come across when we interact with organizations interested in adopting geospatial is, first, there's a resistance to change, which would often come from the process owners. Part of the reason is the sheer comfort zone. They say it's working fine. We have been doing this thing for the last 20 years. Why change it? So we need to evangelize technology with them. We need to educate them on why the life will become much better in the event they were to adopt geospatial technology in the existing process. Second challenge is integration of the geospatial location information, if you will, into the existing workflows, the existing business processes. And third is data discovery, data sourcing. If it's not already, or if it's not available, then data creation like property tax mapping, that sometimes creates a resistance to change. And part of the resistance caused by the value perception, they probably don't recognize the value this technology is going to create. Since yesterday, we've been talking about economic impact of geospatial. Now, this is one group that needs to be exposed to those benefits, the economic impact of technology. Sometimes there's a lack of awareness, though it's much less today than it was, say, 20 years ago. And very often we find there's a need for a champion within the organization, ideally at the approver or process owner level, who can resist any possible objections or blocks that may come and expose others to the value it's going to bring into the organization. Essentially, a need to evangelize GIS with approvers and the process owners. So I'd like to quickly talk about some of the recommendations that we like to make. For the academic institutions, please review the course curriculum, align it to the current trends in technology. Also, more emphasis on the IT skills. Very often we find when students come after a degree in a postgraduate degree or a graduate degree in remote sensing or GIS, they have very limited understanding of IT. They never felt that there's a need to be an IT professional also, if you are a GIS professional. And therefore, they should be familiar and should have good expertise on some of the current trends that I talked about earlier. Good domain knowledge for at least one or two domains. Like I was telling Shaili Gandhi from CPT during the break, that one of the big values that CPT has been creating for us as an industry is they give us geospatial professionals with a strong background in urban planning. Now, we need more of such people with expertise in other domains also. Then, of course, and this is where I think there's a responsibility with the industry, of which I'm a part. We need to visit the campuses and expose students and faculty to the current trends in technology. So they know what is it that the students will be working on after they come out of the university. Likewise, brief on, giving internship to students, and not for 2 months, but at least 6 months, so they can really learn technology deeply and contribute and participate in projects and so on. I would also make a strong case for including geospatial not as an elective, but as a compulsory subject in computer science courses. Location enablement has been an integral part of most of the enterprise systems that are being created. And therefore, it's very important for computer science students to understand what this technology is all about. And therefore, please introduce it as a mandated course and not just as an elective. It very often happens. Likewise, have a session or a course on computer science in the geospatial courses as well. Setting up a center of competence in a university campus helps, where students can do projects, they can showcase their work, you can invite some of the officials from the government to see what's happening, you can conduct programs or seminars and so on. And one very important point that I would like you to learn, I've just been told time is up, but I have 2 more slides if you will. Okay. Multimodal training delivery. What I mean is, what we learned in the last 2 years is it's possible to have virtual classrooms. The big advantage of that today in our context is you can now enroll students wherever they are and optimize utilization of the faculty and other resources. Second mode of delivery of course would be MOOCs, massively online courses, which are on the web, where students can learn at their own pace. And like at Esri, we already have a platform created by us in Knowledge platform, where students can enroll free of cost and learn a lot of things. And my last recommendation is, I think we must build a strategy and an action plan to expose serving officers in the government to this technology. Most of the ministries in the central government and many in the states as well have their own captive training institutes, like Institute of Highway Engineer, Academy of Highway Engineers for Highway Engineers. 2 more minutes. Okay, then we have NP, National Power Training Institute in Faridabad and all. So they conduct regular programs for serving officers in the government. Let's include geospatial also in that. And I know we have been working with some of them in the past, and we continue to do that. Also in the foundation courses at Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy, Missouri, Indira Gandhi National Forest Academy, some of them already doing it, introduce geospatial. So the future decision makers get exposed to this technology during their probation period. Short-term courses can be done for serving officers, maybe 3 days, 5 days, and we have done it in the past. It works very well. Also engage with industry associations, AGI, of course, FICCI, CI, NASCOM, and others, to expose this technology to segments or verticals or domains where the familiarity is not there or not enough. So these are some of the recommendations. And I would like to once again reiterate, which I've been saying for decades, there's a strong need for academic and industry collaboration for HR capacity building. I hope AGI has already been doing a lot of work in that area. I would request AGI to continue doing it in years to come. Before I leave the stage, I should have cautioned you. I have suffered from stage fright. Whenever I take the stage, audience get frightened that I won't leave it easily. But I'm done. I just want to show you a couple of slides. I talked about the bottom of the pyramid. What at S India we've done is we've gone to the real bottom of the skill pyramid. And by that, I mean conducting training for the underprivileged, the empowering women in rural areas and expose them to this technology. Here are some numbers on the screen, which you can see. This is the kind of file that we are addressing. And it's a national program. Just have a look at the pie chart. Half of the students have studied only up to class 12. This initiative is exposing rural women educated up to class 12 to geospatial. Basic thing. We're not talking about AI machine learning there. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
I find the remote sensing is a section in the science and geography. I believe GIS should be also included in the primary books, just to creating awareness, like the environment science is there, remote sensing is there. I think GIS, I didn't find GIS, but they're launching of satellites, they know something about satellite. But I think GIS, again, it's need of, without that, it's without, I don't think people can move in the current world. When every moment when we are on the wheel, we are always trying to sing Google Map and GIS. Why not to do the introduction at the early stage? Thank you very much. You gave very nice presentation. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.